Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. We hear from a family member who speaks out about who Jennifer Ng was, the 42-year-old woman who died while swimming in the Oldman River last week. In honor of National Indigenous Peoples Day, a special flag was raised at Lethbridge City Hall. And hundreds of people gathered demanding the release of a Calgary pastor who was arrested for a second time for breaking public health orders.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. A GoFundMe campaign to raise money for the family of 42-year-old Jennifer Ng, the woman who drowned in the Oldman River last Monday, has now raised over $8,500. The initial goal was $5,000. Ng's stepsister is Jennifer Robison. Jennifer says this has been a tough time for her family, and the funds raised are needed to help the 5 children her stepsister left behind.
And help them with anything that they need, whether it's schooling or clothing or just everyday needs that they are going to need in the future, or even now in the present. It's going to help them immensely and just lift the burdens that they might have just around money or anything like that, that they just know that they're being taken care of and that the family is being taken care of, that they're able to get the things that they need. Jennifer was a fantastic sister. She was a loving mother of 5. She was very hardworking. Jennifer owned her own business at one time and was very talented at the things that she ever put her mind to. All she needed to do was set her mind to do something, and she was amazing at whatever she did. She could sing. Jennifer could dance. Jennifer was athletic. She was strong mentally. She was strong physically. And she always took the time to listen, even though her life wasn't what she probably wanted it to be. She was resilient. Her life wasn't a secret to anybody. She may have had her struggles, like we all have our own struggles in our lives and stuff like that, but she never gave up.
5 paramedics recovered Jennifer Ng near the Paradise Canyon Golf Course, but were unable to resuscitate her. Lethbridge police need our help locating suspects from a smash and grab from last Wednesday. Police say around 3:45 a.m., 4 suspects smashed the front door of the House Sweet Candy Shop at the 300 block of 5th Street South. 3 of the suspects entered the store and loaded up with bags of a variety of merchandise, along with an undisclosed amount of cash. If you can help police with their investigation, you're asked to call Crime Stoppers right away at 1-800-222-8477. Indigenous life has been quite dark lately as the residential school history of Canada has reared its ugly head. BCN's Naveen Day was in Cardston over the weekend to cover the dedication of a special monument. This was not only to honor the children who didn't make it back home, but to also remember the victims of a brutal massacre.
This will never be in a textbook. You will never read this in a textbook, and I thought how sad that was.
Former Cardston High School teacher Kara Baldwin and some former and current Blackfoot students designed a monument and healing garden that was installed, then dedicated on June 19th. It is to honor those who survived and those who died in the Baker Massacre, as well as in residential schools. In her Master of Education thesis, PhD candidate Ramona Bighead tells the story about how over 200 innocent Indigenous people, mostly women, children, and elders, were senselessly killed. She says the event was first sparked by the murder of a prominent rancher and fur trader named Malcolm Clark.
He was accused of allegations of raping a Blackfoot woman, and her husband came and got revenge on him. In retaliation, General Philip Sheridan sent a squadron of cavalry led by Major Eugene Baker to look for Mountain Chief's camp where Clark's killer was residing. Mountain Chief's band fled after hearing of the raid, and another band had settled there before Baker's squad had arrived. Despite knowing this was a friendly band, Baker decided to attack anyways. Baker said, doesn't matter. One pagan or another, it doesn't matter. Just kill them all. Heavy Runner was the chief of that camp. That's Heavy Runner. He came out and he had this paper signed by the superintendent of Indian Affairs in the state of Montana at the time, saying he's a peaceful chief. He was the first one to be shot. Approximately 217 were murdered that day. The survivors were children. And these children were running to just along the cliffs of the river, digging into frozen dirt with their fingernails, trying to find shelter from the bullets that were going everywhere.
One of the students who worked on the project found out that he has an ancestor that played an important role in the Baker Massacre.
I just found out today that I was a descendant from Chief Heavy Runner from the Baker Massacre that kind of led them away, trying to let the survivors come out. And when I first seen his name on there, someone that was part of that Baker Massacre kind of hurt a lot.
Cardston Mayor Maggie Cronin says the monument is going to leave a legacy in her town.
It is a tangible evidence towards that desire for reconciliation. And I am so touched that it is the new generation, the youth, especially from the reserve, who felt that that was an important thing to move forward.
The total cost of the project was $91,000, which included $70,000 in grants. $5,000 was contributed by the West Wind School Division, and $2,000 was raised by personal donations. You can contribute to the project by contacting the town of Cardston. For Bridge City News, I'm Naveen Day.
The Blackfoot Confederacy flag was raised Monday morning at Lethbridge City Hall to honor National Indigenous Peoples Day. A ceremony at the City Centre consisted of speeches from dignitaries and traditional dancing. Indigenous Relations Coordinator for the city, Pamela Beebe, describes the meaning of the flag and why it's so important that it's raised.
The Siksikaitsitapi flag is the Blackfoot Confederacy flag, and there's 4 tribes, the Kainai, Siksika, Piikani, and Amskapi Piikani. They're in Blackfeet, Montana. And the raising of the flag is very important for people, especially young people, especially the ones who may have been affected by the 60s scoop, which is still happening. It started in the 1960s where children were forcibly removed from families. And so it's still happening today. And it's a way for them to connect to their culture, to their language, to the dance, to the dress, to everything.
New permanent flagpoles are being installed outside of Lethbridge City Hall, which will allow for the reconciliation and Blackfoot flags to be able to fly permanently. National Indigenous Day is a time to celebrate the unique heritage, diverse cultures, and outstanding contributions of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples across Canada. Lethbridge College hosted a virtual event to celebrate this year. College officials say the day was to honor the victims of the recent tragic events, but to also celebrate our country's Indigenous culture.
We do need to mourn, but we also need to act. We need to recommit to the calls for action in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada. And, you know, for us, how amazing to have honored Murray Sinclair in our virtual convocation this year. And for him to, you know, re-enter that cry for action in those so many recommendations that were made, and there's many things that we can do.
It's about the coming together of all peoples, Indigenous and non-Indigenous people alike, to share in a day of connection and understanding. It's about taking time to learn and share from the past, to acknowledge the strong and vibrant culture and traditions that are much alive and thriving today, and to continue to pass down that knowledge and share our stories with future generations to come.
This year's event was built on a collective story of what it means to reside on Blackfoot territory. Ongoing cuts to the operating budget at Lethbridge College has resulted in 5 jobs being cut, with more to come. That's according to an email sent to staff from Lethbridge College President and CEO, Dr. Paula Burns. These positions are mostly in the caretaking and groundskeeping departments. Vice President of the Alberta Union of Provincial Employees, which represents workers at Lethbridge College, Karen Weirs, says employees are continuously worried about their jobs due to the lack of funding.
Every day, these workers, when you have these continual cuts, one after another, after another, after another, you go in each day wondering which day will be your day. Will you have a job tomorrow? Is there a concern for your job? This has plummeted the morale within workers, within the college, and within all post-secondary education when you look at all the cuts that have happened. So again, yeah, the morale is so low, not knowing whose job will be next on this cutting board of jobs that this government is currently doing from lack of funding.
In Burns' email, she states that unfortunately, the college knows further cuts are coming in the 2022 provincial budget. As we approach the last week of June, children are finishing up the school year and will begin their summer holidays very soon. As Carson Marsouk reports now, different organizations around Lethbridge are planning to offer summer camps this year to keep kids busy and engaged.
After 16 months of dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, Albertans are looking forward to what is shaping up to be a normal summer. One part of summer that was impacted last year was summer camps for children. As part of the Alberta government's Open for Summer plan, summer camps have been given the green light, and organizations around Lethbridge are preparing to welcome kids back this summer. The Coeur Van Ray YMCA says registration is already open.
We'll be offering day camps throughout the summer, absolutely, and so those are open for registration at this time. We'll be doing outdoor day camp things, swim options, as well as activities in the gymnasium.
Across the city, Lethbridge College announced last week that kids will once again be roaming the halls this summer. Director of Business Development at the college, Jason Donkersgood, says kids can try out carpentry or learn more about technology and the ecosystem, as well as participate in Kodiak's athletic camps.
Really, when we entered phase 2, the government said that summer day camps were available. So we kind of had them on the back burner. At times we were ready to move ahead, then we had to say, no, we can't do this. And then finally, when we entered into phase 2, it became obvious that we could run them.
Or if your kids would like to enjoy the hot weather and be surrounded by nature, summer camps at the Helen Shuler Nature Center are set to go ahead in late July. Resource Development Coordinator at the Nature Center, Curtis Goodman, says their day camps are in collaboration with multiple organizations around Lethbridge.
Coolies and Culture Day Camp is a really neat partnership between the Helen Shuler Nature Center, the Galt Museum, Fort Whoop-Up, Southern Alberta Art Gallery, and New West Theatre. And that day camp allows participants to spend one day throughout the week at different venues, so they can experience a whole range of different cultural activities here in the city.
Programs are being limited by capacity. You can register by visiting the organization's website. For Bridge City News, I'm Carson Marsouk.
A Calgary pastor had the lug nuts from a wheel of his truck loosened by someone trying to cause harm to him and his ministry. Pastor Arthur Pulowski says this is the same truck that is used to deliver food to the homeless.
They slashed a tire of the food delivery truck and they unscrewed the bolts of the tire. So what happened, before the March for Jesus, my wife asked a friend of ours to drive to the place to wash it. And thank God that she was driving very slow, because the wheel came out of the truck and the whole thing just went down and the wheel took off. If he was driving, or my wife with children, because she uses the truck, or me or anybody else, if we were on the highway, that would end up probably with a serious collision.
Pastor Pulowski is one of 3 Alberta pastors who were arrested and spent time in jail for breaking public health orders during the pandemic. Close to 200 people lobbied for the release of a church leader outside of the Calgary Remand Centre on Sunday. Fairview Baptist Church pastor Tim Stevens was arrested last week after allegedly violating a court order and holding an outdoor service that defied pandemic-related public health orders. The law firm representing him, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, says Pastor Tim was arrested for a second time illegally. He remains in custody ahead of a June 28th court appearance. An all-terrain vehicle rollover has claimed the life of a 77-year-old man in central Alberta. Police say members of the RCMP Innisfail detachment were called out to the accident late Saturday evening. They say he was provided medical care but died at the scene. RCMP say the early part of the investigation revealed the man was operating the ATV alone and simply lost control. The Mayor of Edmonton says the city will be putting on a Canada Day fireworks display this year. Don Iveson says the show will also be live streamed for anyone who would rather watch it from home. Northwest of the city, St. Albert announced its Canada Day fireworks would not take place because of the location. The event was planned for Mission Hill, which the city explains is the site of the former Youville Residential School. It says it is likely the site of unmarked graves of former students. The province announced today that 1.5 million Albertans have entered the Open for Summer lottery, which includes 3 draws for $1 million each and travel prizes for both WestJet and Air Canada. Officials also said that the Calgary Stampede family admissions and ride packages will be included. The winners will be announced when Stage 3 of Alberta's Open for Summer plan begins on July the 1st.
To enter, you need to get at least a first dose of a vaccine and enter online for the lottery by midnight, June 24th. You can do that at alberta.ca/lottery, and the winners of these Stampede prizes, as well as our first $1 million jackpot, will be drawn on July the 1st, on Canada Day, when we get our full freedoms back, when we open for summer and open for good.
Health officials say to date, just over 70.6% of eligible Albertans have now received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, that includes close to 27% who are fully vaccinated. From our poll question this week, we're asking if you agree with the Alberta government moving on to Stage 3 and removing almost all COVID-19 restrictions on Canada Day, July 1st. Make sure you log on to bridgecitynews.ca and let us know your thoughts. We'll have the results for you on Friday evening's newscast. Saskatchewan has become the second province behind Alberta to set a date for lifting all remaining public health restrictions. The big day will be July the 11th. All public health measures will end, including the province-wide mandatory masking order and capacity limits on events and gatherings. Premier Scott Moe says the province can move to Step 3 because Saskatchewan is also close to reaching the vaccination thresholds needed for a full reopening. As of yesterday, 70% of residents over the age of 18 and 69% of those over 12 have received at least their first dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. Canadians who are fully vaccinated and permanent residents returning to Canada will soon be able to avoid a mandatory quarantine. Federal Health Minister Patty Hajdu says the first stage in loosening the border restrictions that have been in place for 15 months will begin on July the 5th.
Fully vaccinated travelers will not be required to take a COVID-19 test on day 8 or stay at a government-authorized hotel. You will still need to meet a series of requirements, including pre- and on-arrival testing. We are continuing these testing requirements to allow public health experts to continue to monitor positivity rates at the border and monitor for variants of concern. Having this information will allow public health experts to recommend further adjustments to border measures quickly.
It was on this day that Britain's Prince William was born. John Hinckley Jr. was found not guilty for shooting U.S. President Ronald Reagan, and 3 civil rights workers disappeared in Mississippi. This is Today in History for June the 21st.
June 21st, 1964.
So I ask those killers, can you sleep again? Those 3 are on my mind.
In Philadelphia, Mississippi, 3 civil rights workers disappear while trying to help blacks register to vote. Michael Schwerner, Andrew Goodman, and James Chaney are ambushed and killed by Ku Klux Klansmen. 6 weeks later, their bodies are found buried in an earthen dam. 1788. The Constitution of the United States takes effect as New Hampshire becomes the 9th state to ratify the document. 1834. Cyrus Hall McCormick receives a patent for his reaping machine, the grain-cutting invention that revolutionizes farming. 1982, a jury in Washington, D.C. finds John Hinckley Jr. not guilty by reason of insanity for shooting President Ronald Reagan and 3 others. Hinckley, who said he shot Reagan to impress actress Jodie Foster, is committed to a psychiatric hospital. And finally, also that same year,
career in the armed services would be the best thing at the moment because, it'd be lovely to recognise all the hard work that the armed forces are doing.
Prince William, second in line to the British throne, son of Prince Charles and the late Princess Diana, is born in London. Today in History, June 21st. Camille Bohannon, The Associated Press.
We had another summer-like day here in southwestern Alberta, and those hot temperatures will be sticking around. Full weather details, including a look at the long-range forecast, is coming up. Make sure you have lots of sunscreen and water to stay well hydrated this week. It'll be a hot one. Jeanette Roche is here with a full look at the weather forecast. Jeanette, if you like the heat, you're really going to love this week.
Well, I do love the heat, and it is a beautiful start to summer if you do love the heat like I do. Every day getting warmer and warmer, especially as we edge toward that weekend there. But look at these highs for tomorrow, 31 degrees, lots of sunshine. Mix of sun and cloud on Wednesday, 28 the high, 25 for Thursday, 29 for Friday. And then look at that weekend, 33 degrees the high on a Saturday and a Sunday. 35 degrees, lots of sunshine. So definitely keep hydrated. So today, first day of summer, June 21st, we're looking at 16 hours and 19 minutes of daylight. This is that time of year where we get that long stretch of daylight for about a week straight. Compare that to 6 months ago when we were looking at 8 hours and 7 minutes of daylight. So our days literally twice as long this time of year. 23, the high temperature for this time of year. We're well above that. Average low, 9 degrees. 33 was our high temperature back in 1970. And in 1996, we had our lowest, which was 3. 5:24 is when the sun rose this morning and sunset this evening, 9:43 p.m. Like I said, we're still in that 16 hours and 19 minutes of daylight. Now we've got a warm, dry system hitting the south coast of British Columbia, bringing with it warm temperatures of the daytime, about 5 to 10 degrees hotter than normal for this time of year. Victoria, Vancouver, both lots of sunshine. Same thing with the rest of Alberta. Edmonton, 29, 30 degrees in Calgary for tomorrow. Lots of sunshine. Same with the rest of the prairies. Just we're looking at warm conditions. 30 degrees in both Saskatoon and Regina. Mix of sun and cloud in Saskatoon. Winnipeg also looking at a lovely 24 degrees with partly cloudy skies. Now, over in Toronto, we're also looking at a mix of sun and cloud, 19 degrees the high. There is a severe thunderstorm watch for both Ottawa and Montreal tonight, but by tomorrow, we're looking at mainly cloudy conditions, 17 degrees the high for both of those cities there. As we look further into the east, we're looking at 5 to 10 millimeters of rain in Fredericton. Could see a thunderstorm in there tomorrow as well. 23 the high, 24 for Halifax, 27 for Charlottetown, looking at some rain there. There is a tropical cyclone statement issued also for Nova Scotia and parts of Newfoundland. It could bring with it rain, wind, surging waves, but not so much for St. John's tomorrow. 26 degrees the high and sunshine, looking like a beautiful day there tomorrow. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Today's weather is brought to you by Jeff Reimer of Royal LePage South Country Real Estates, 403-380-1779.
Inter Pipeline is urging shareholders to reject a revised hostile takeover bid from Brookfield Infrastructure Partners. Instead, the company is supporting a friendly takeover offer from Pembina Pipeline. The deal with Brookfield would allow shareholders a choice of receiving their payment entirely in cash instead of the cash and shares deal Pembina is offering. Inter Pipeline says it continues to believe its deal with Pembina provides greater value. Brookfield said it would eliminate a cap on the amount of cash available under its proposal following feedback from investors. Travel company Transat AT says talks with Pierre Palladot regarding a potential takeover have ended with no agreement. Palladot had made a non-binding offer for Transat of $5 a share in cash. That was well below the Montreal-based company's closing share price of $7.21 on the TSX on Friday. Transat says it will focus its efforts on its strategic plan while restarting operations on July the 30th. The case of a massive cargo vessel that blocked the Suez Canal for close to a week earlier this year has been adjourned to allow for more time for negotiations. Both legal teams have asked an Egyptian court to allow them to work on resolving their financial dispute over compensation. The Suez Canal Authority is demanding $550 million. Now that is well down from the $916 million to cover the salvage operation, costs of stalled canal traffic, and lost transit fees for the week in March the ship blocked the canal. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 156 points on the day to finish at 20,156. The Dow was up 586 to 33,877. The S&P 500 was up 58 points to 4225, and the Nasdaq was up 111 to 14,141. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 202 to 73.66 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 2 cents to 3.19 US. Gold was up 6 cents to 17.8333 US an ounce, and silver was up a cent to 25.96 US an ounce. Wheat is at $340 per metric ton. Barley's also at $340. Canola's at $6.94, and corn is at $400 per metric ton. Live cattle were down 8 cents to 120.98. Feeder cattle were up 8 cents to 155.10, and lean hogs were down $1.63 to 107.05. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 80.90 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, a GoFundMe campaign for the family of 42-year-old Jennifer Ng, who drowned last week in the Oldman River, has now raised over $8,500. The goal was $5,000. The funds will be used to support Jennifer's 5 children who were left behind. We all know that marriage takes a lot of work. Coming up, Jeanette Roche chats with marriage coach Brent Taylor about working through personality clashes in marriages. That Q&A is on deck.
Well, we all know that people have different personalities, but do we know to what extent this can impact marital relationships? And perhaps more controversially, there are gender differences which can also impact marriage. Joining us to discuss this is Brent Taylor. He is a Lethbridge marriage coach and the author of His, Hers, Greatest Need. Of course, his and hers with a Z or a Z, which is an interesting way to spell that. Brent, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you. It's again, it's an honor and it's a privilege to be here, and thank you.
Of course. So first of all, can you briefly share a little bit about what you do to help couples improve their relationships?
Right. Well, the book started out with discovering, and what I share is his and hers greatest need, which you can find in here. And then the single biggest reason why marriages break down, how to build them up. And again, the greatest way a husband loves his wife and the greatest way a wife loves her husband. Those are 4 key components that I share with them when I first meet with them or I do an introduction session. And that is the big aha. After that, I get into the program that I coach them with, UCG, Understanding, Communication, and Giving. And in that, in the understanding component, there's personalities, love languages, gender, plus values and beliefs. And then in the communication, we do a safe talk, which involves appreciation, sensitive items, and apology talk. I've incorporated the 5 apology languages from Dr. Gary Chapman into the scripting of the safe talk. But the most important part that I work with them on is the giving, UC&G, Understanding, Communication, and Giving. Really, I got to get to the heart. Everybody thinks it's a mindset. And yes, that's true, but it's really a heart set and it boils down to our motive. So that's the biggest area that I get to because most people don't realize how selfish we are.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, true. You need someone to almost hold up that mirror in front of you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, of course, your book talks so much about the differences between men and women. So I guess before we get to talking about personality and gender differences, you write in your book that the greatest need for a husband is significance. Can you explain what you mean by husbands needing a significance?
Right. Well, kind of the best way I put it is every guy wants to be his wife's hero. Whether he's dating to be married or whether he is married and whether he's 22 or whether he's 62. Sometimes it can subside and things like that, but every guy wants to be his wife's hero. And every woman, she wants to be fought for. So it kind of makes sense that he wants to be her hero and she wants to be fought for. And it's kind of romantic, but I always say when, God created man, he said it was good. And we created woman, he said, whoo, man. And it really is. It's a love story. And yeah, it's not all full of roses and the roses grow better through the manure together. But the reality is deep down inside, he wants to be her hero. He wants to be important to her. And men can have ego issues. Tell me one man that doesn't struggle with ego issues. That's rooted in his desire to be significant. But sometimes it can tip the teeter-totter and confidence is one thing, but also humility and humbleness is another thing.
Mm-hmm. Where does that come from, do you think, that need of significance? I think we all have it, but you speak specifically to men.
Right. Now, women want to be significant as well. It's just not their deep core need. Hers is security, emotional and physical security. And, the man's is significance. It actually goes back to the book of Genesis. It goes back to the fall in the garden. And we kind of amped up our needs. We increased them because we wanted to be independent. We fell away. So there was actually a curse that said, you know, cursed are you, you will toil the land all the days of your life. You can't work hard enough. Basically, he was saying, you want to be independent? I'm going to amp it up a little bit. Same thing with women. You want to be independent? I'm going to amp up your need for security. So it really comes down to that. But if you think about it, if a man's designed to be a provider and a protector, her need for security then falls into line with that protection. He wants to protect her. He was made to give his life for his wife. I use the Titanic. Even in the feminist world, I say, well, let's pretend we got the Titanic and the ship's going down and down and down and down, and you have co-captains instead of one captain. So you got man and woman, and everybody's jumping on lifeboats, and there's only one lifeboat left and room for one more person. Man's looking at woman, and who do you think is going to say, you take the last spot on the last lifeboat? It better be the man.
Mm-hmm.
And who do you think is going to accept the offer?
the woman.
And who do you think is going to have some tears going down her face for how much he loved her because he gave his life for his wife? And so, yeah, so that's really the litmus test that he wants to be her protector, her provider. He wants to fight for her, and she wants to be fought for. So it makes, sense that he would want to be her hero, which ties into being significant. Yes, he wants to be significant too, but it's not as deep a core need.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, of course, there are those who would argue that men and women are the same, that there's no real difference. But you, of course, would say that there really are differences in the way our brains are hardwired. Can you explain some of these gender differences?
Well, generally speaking, and it happens biologically at birth or at a very, very young age, boys and girls are wired basically the same. But at a very young age, we're talking weeks old, or even, I don't know if it's might be in the womb, but I think it's after, testosterone hits the brain of a little boy. Massive amounts of testosterone hit a little boy. But in the early stages, they're generally the same. The communication, the verbal interaction, when you're changing their diapers and you're smiling and goo goo gaga over your children, and there's a connection. But because of the testosterone that hits the male brain, it decreases his connection of that verbal, relational, emotional connection, and it increases his tendency for action and aggression. If he's going to be a provider, if he's going to sacrifice his life, then he has to be willing to put himself at the front end of the battle lines to protect his wife and children. That testosterone is necessary. And here's proof. Lots of ladies think, well, my husband just wants me for sex, or they feel used. Well, actually, man was designed to love his wife. A lot of people think God gave man, woman to be his helpmate. Yes, there's merit there, but largely God is a giver of love, and man was made to give his wife love. And he just happens, because of the testosterone, he happens to love physically. Women tend to connect emotionally first before the physical kicks in. They want to trust. They want to feel secure. They want to know things are looked after. They want to know that she can give herself to him. But men come alive physically first, then the emotional, and then women are kind of the opposite. So I would say God's got a sense of humor because they're kind of missing each other here. So there's a hardwired difference between male and female. Another one is, I believe it's the right side of the brain. The little boy's brain is more wired for spatial, how objects move in space. How many women, you're trying to find a house, you're going to go visit some friends, and you think, well, my husband should just ask for directions. And he goes, no. They think, well, he's got ego issues. Maybe a little bit, but also men actually enjoy figuring out how to get from here to here, how things move in space. They want to figure that out. So there's another difference. Ladies, they just want to get from point A to point B. And so there's a spatial arrangement. Ladies tend to be more relational, and guys tend to be more spatial.
Mm-hmm. And want to fix the problems too. So we all know that men like to fix problems, and women just want their husbands to listen to their problems.
Right, because I say, guys, listen with your eyes and zip your lip. And because most men think, why are we talking unless we're solving a problem? And women think, why are we solving a problem? I just want you to listen. Because men love solvingly. So when a husband is solving his wife's problem, he's actually loving her. But she doesn't see it as that. She takes it critically, because here's what most women don't realize. And I just said it to a couple the other day, and immediately she acknowledged and smiled. And I said, she wants to know that he cares about how she feels about the problem. So you don't need to fix the problem. You need to care how she feels about the problem, because she's looking for the heart connection. She's looking, again, for that security. She wants to know that you care about how she feels. So there's a definite difference. Whereas guys say, why don't we just solve the problem? Then you won't have those feelings anymore.
Yeah. You know, it's funny how so many times couples have such different personalities. So like opposites, they say opposites seem to attract, right? But apparently the personality differences can cause some serious clashes. So is it important or worthwhile to take time to do a personality analysis in order to understand how we see the world as compared to our spouse?
The short answer is yes. It's definitely worthwhile. When I had my company called BCT Structures, I had to lose my $50 million company. Largest plant built in manufacturing. I know I'm bragging. See, there's the guy's ego. And I had to lose it all. But even when I had it and I was going through all my struggles in life, and I'm a bit of a softie, I wanted this for our employees, not too much of this and none of this. How do we get here? So all of the staff that I hired, I used the personality, and I used True Colors. I didn't know True Colors back then, but I was using this 8 questions. It's now 10 questions that I've expanded it to. It's all over North America. They use it in the school systems. And it's the simplest to use, because in the color code of blue, green, orange, and gold, you can tell who's the more sensitive or romantic one, which is important when you're coaching couples. They also have cards for children. They can quickly arrange it in 10 seconds. They know who they are. Personalities is important, because blue is sensitive, relational, green is analytical, orange is spontaneity, fun, go for it, and gold is organized and structured. They have their upside and their downside. It's very, very important. Golds are organized and structured and loyal, but they're bossy, controlling, and inflexible. Blues are sensitive, compassionate, and caring. They're a bleeding heart and needy and an enabler. So we need to know our greatest strengths to be our greatest weaknesses. So what I do for couples, and I combine their personalities with their love languages. So they get their score in their love languages. So words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. So when you combine those two with the gender, you have a very powerful profile. And I share with the husband and wife how they individually tick, but also where they connect and where they disconnect. When you can understand each other, you can go, oh, that's why they behave and think the way they do. They have a different set of lenses. We also get into upbringing. So our upbringing is a huge manifestation. So it is very wise to understand. Most people think they're going to get it through osmosis. Mm-hmm. No, you need to learn.
Right. So when spouses do have those conflicting personality types, what advice do you have to adjust for this to make things work? Is there anything people need to adjust in their, I don't know, I don't want to say personality, but I guess, yeah.
Good question. The adjustment first comes from understanding. I think there's a huge wall that starts to come down when we understand the way each other thinks and feels and perspectives. So at least you can start to understand it. You don't just criticize or get mad at them for not seeing it my way. That's important. The other thing we do get to, which is huge, is because, as I shared with you before, when we cross our arms, that becomes the comfortable way. But if I was to reverse it, most people struggle to reverse it. That can be comfortable. So it's what we get used to. There's only 2 motives in the world. It's either love or selfishness. It's either what you can do for me or what can I do for you. Most of the time, Christian or non-Christian, we're focused on me, 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 me. We don't know it. That's our number one problem in the world. We're addicted to self. And we're comfortable with it. So we're habitually practiced at it. So I can get to the head and the heart, but if we don't get to the habit, so not only understanding, which helps, then helping them have a communication tool, which I call Safe Talk, but ultimately we need to start practicing giving. And here's the cool part. When we're giving, we're living. Why does it take a high river flood, a Fort McMurray fire, California fire, Haiti, Japan, and New Orleans? Why does it take a disaster for us to get off our selfish couches and go give, expecting nothing in return? Expecting nothing in return. So if I can help husband and wife understand each other and they can start giving, expecting nothing in return, and I say, husbands, when you treat your wife right, she blossoms. Can you imagine if husbands and wives started putting the other one first? Because the true definition of love is self-giving, not self-seeking. Love is me last and you first.
Yeah, what a wonderful world it would be.
That's why Jesus came to give his life. He wanted to show us that, not only save us, but show us that love is me last, not me. And when you start to put the other first, when you're giving, you come alive, and the gift is in the giving. So once we realize I was going in the wrong direction.
Right.
And the more I chase the me race, the more empty.
Brent, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your wisdom. We appreciate having you on again.
Thank you. And I just want to have that little quote I shared before. I said, if we can put love back in the marriage, we can put love back in the world.
There you go, right there. Brent Taylor is a Lethbridge marriage coach and the author of Hers Greatest Need.
COVID-19 has affected so many of us, physically, financially, spiritually, and mentally. But it has also had a major real impact on the world's poor. A number of Christian organizations are doing some great work to help people financially during difficult times, including through microfinance. We're going to learn how this works in just a moment, and how you can get involved to make a difference as well. Joining us today to talk about this is Lance Wood. He's a business person and co-author of the book, $4.83, The Cost to Impact the Life of a Child for a Year, Maybe Forever. Welcome to Bridge City News, Lance.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, Hal.
So how did you come up with that title? And that's quite the long title as well of a book, $4.83.
It is a long
exactly
title,
does it mean?
but the point is the number, $4.83. The concept is that Christ-centered microfinance, which some of you may be familiar with, is the idea that you give a family an opportunity, a little loan to start a business or put them in a savings group where they begin to accumulate some wealth. And it's through that loan that they pull themselves out of poverty, both spiritual and material poverty. And when you pull the family out of poverty, they help their kids. And so in Christ-centered microfinance, it costs about $20 to help a family for a year, to get a little business and to help them out of poverty. And when you divide the 20 by the number of people in the family, average of 4, it works out to be $4.83 based on some financial statements that we reviewed of one of the organizations.
Wow. Now, Lance, talking about giving money sometimes makes people a little uncomfortable. Why do you think the Bible mentions money or possessions more than 2,000 times?
Because money impacts our hearts, right? I mean, what happens is the Bible talks about where your heart is, your treasure is also. And where your treasure is, your heart is also. And so the point is that the way we hold money, either tightly or with open hands, affects our relationship with Jesus.
Now, can you give us a bit of a layman's idea of what you mean by microfinance?
Yeah, again, it's the concept. I'll just give you an example. The way that it works is an organization goes to a little community and they don't know anybody, but they know that everybody knows everybody in the community, and they say, we're here to help. We're here to help you get a little business, and we don't know you, but we know that you know each other, so we're going to put you in groups of 5. And be careful who you allow into your group of 5, because you're going to cross-guarantee each other's loans. So if one person doesn't pay, the others have to pay. So what starts out as a business transaction creates this group of 5 because they pick carefully. And they then make the loans. Everybody gets their businesses. How maybe you get chickens and you're selling eggs. I buy the equipment for a little oven and make bread. Well, I buy all my eggs from you. You buy all your bread from me. Out of nothing, we create a little business community. And we're meeting every 2 weeks to repay loans, to study the Bible, to see what the Bible says about doing business with integrity and honest, and to learn about Jesus. And what happens is, out of nothing, and I just want to stop here. The World Bank interviewed people in poverty, and they just asked them, what's going on? And they said, we feel humiliated, we feel isolated, we feel inferior, we feel ashamed, we feel disconnected, we feel hopeless, we have fear. Well, what happens when they put this little community together, that now they've all got little businesses, they all are meeting weekly or bi-weekly, they're taking care of each other, they're studying the Word of God, all that stuff changes. It's not just about the money. What happens is they pull themselves out of poverty, including now they no longer feel inferior. Now they no longer afraid. Now they aren't isolated. They aren't depressed, and they have hope. So this financial tool winds up creating an amazing effect on people's lives.
All that talk of chicken, now I'm kind of craving a little bit of fried chicken and maybe some fried eggs at the same time here.
There
now,
you
Lance,
go.
Your book delves into different ways the kids win through microfinance. What are some of those ways specifically, and how can they really make a difference?
Yeah, great. And so the point is, when people think of Christ-centered microfinance, they think of the parents being helped, but there's tons of research, and just as intuitive, that when the parents get help, they pull their kids out of poverty with them, and the family thrives. So some of the things are food, right? Instead of 1 meal a day, now 2. Instead of no clothes or no shoes, clothes and shoes. Instead, housing, education, healthcare, modeling that work is valuable. And also they grow spiritually, because as their parents grow spiritually, they move towards the church and move towards Jesus.
Now, you talk a lot about work and the value of work and why it may be a bad idea to just give handouts, which a lot of governments have been doing during the pandemic. Why are you putting so much value on work?
Hal, there's a great book about this written by Bob Lupton. It's called Toxic Charity. And what it says is, the first time somebody gets a handout, they appreciate it. And the second time they anticipate it. And the third time they feel they expect it. And the fourth time they feel entitled. And the fifth time it creates dependency. And it wrecks people's lives, because God made us to work and to value work and to have the dignity of valuing work. And so that's the way God made us. That's the way Christ-centered microfinance does it. The people never get given anything. All they get is an opportunity, like, frankly, me and you were born with.
You know, my father, he instilled that hard work ethic in me. My father was a baby boomer, may he rest in peace. And you're right, it rubbed off on me. He raised me that way, and nothing comes for free, and that phone's not going to ring off the hook. You got to be assertive, get out there, be aggressive, and work hard for everything you get. Now, Lance, how are the strength and stability of the family, speaking of like moms and dads here, a key indicator of a society's health?
I like the way you say that, mums and dads. But God made the family to be an institution, and it absolutely is true. We see it all around the developing world, and we see it in our world, that when the family breaks down, society falls apart. God just made it that way. It's true there, it's true here. And we see that in people in poverty, that when the families thrive, the kids thrive, and the cycle of poverty is broken.
Now, you're right that poverty affects every part of the human experience. In what way specifically?
Oh, you know, I mentioned that World Bank study that said people in poverty, they feel inferior, they feel ashamed. I think, oh, they don't have any money, or they need a job. That's just a part of it. It's everything. It's what they say, we feel oppressed and depressed. But I think one of the biggest things, they feel isolated from each other and isolated from God. Poverty is just it's a blanket over you that holds you down.
Lance, the availability of affordable housing is an issue all around the world, even here in Lethbridge, where we have a real homeless problem, and trying to get affordable housing for young people and for seniors as well, for that matter. What is the answer to homelessness, even in first world countries?
You know, I'm not sure that I'm the person to answer that, but let me just say, from my experience around seeing people in absolute poverty, having ownership and having hope and being able to look to the future changes something. And as they begin to work for themselves, they can begin to put a roof over their heads and ultimately own a home.
Now explain what you mean by the terms short-term thinking or survival thinking.
Yeah, and this is a trap, right? When there's a crisis, you get stuck in crisis. You've got to have relief from the outside. And personally, that's when I believe it's appropriate to have relief and gift. When it's a trap, it's a crisis, it's an immediate problem. But a person can't be in that forever. They have to have an avenue to begin to look forward and to begin to hope and to begin to move out of poverty. And again, that's what Christ-centered microfinance does. Another type of Christ-centered microfinance, I talked about a loan, but actually is a savings group where you cause people to come together and everybody just puts in 25 cents. And it's amazing that just doing that, and then they loan the money out to each other to start little businesses, just doing that takes the focus off of I'm going to survive for another day and I'm just going to spend everything I get and hope I can eat, to now people start looking to the future and start moving and saving, and it's just amazing.
You know, some people, Lance, actually have a bit of an issue with the term in the Bible, it's better to give than to receive, especially during the pandemic when so many families are hurting. They find it might be even harder to give. But what you're trying to tell me right now is that it's still important to give even during the dark times.
Oh my gosh, if there ever was a time, I think God made us for this, right? It's like Esther, if this is your time. And there's opportunity. It's God's plan that's unfolding right now. And I believe I believe you are called to be a part of it. What is your role? Can you hear God's voice? And how can you step in? And maybe Christ-centered microfinance isn't God's plan for you, but I tell you what, whatever it is, lean in now, listen for God's voice and step forward. It's been such a blessing in my life.
Listen to that still small voice. And sometimes it's a powerful voice too, like hits you like a ton of bricks over the head. So God has subtle ways and very powerful ways of reaching our hearts, definitely. Lance, describe what you mean by a holistic approach to poverty.
Yeah, that's great, Hal. So it's easy to just give somebody something when you see them in poverty. It's a lot harder to help break the destructive cycle of poverty in their life. So a holistic approach, to me, I care about the person's material well-being on this earth, and I also care equally, if not more, about their spiritual well-being. And a holistic approach, which is what Christ-centered microfinance is, addresses both at the same time. The people pull themselves out of poverty with dignity and with Jesus.
Now, you end your book by giving us some ideas about how we can help. Can you share some of those with us?
Oh, I would love that. Thank you. So this is a message, right? I'm not even a charity. I have a website. It's called kids-win.com, and you can go there and you can see we're starting a campaign to try to help 100,000 kids, and you'll be able to give $4.83, and that won't ever go to me. That will go to multiple 501c3 charities that are helping kids through Christ-centered microfinance. And so I'm trying to just raise the bar, raise the awareness, cause people to understand. I'm an accountant. I'm a business guy. I can hardly believe that $4.83 can really change the life of a kid. And we have a big problem right now. 700 million people are in extreme poverty, underneath $1.90 a day a living, and 400 million of them are children. And UNICEF tells us that 3.5 million children a year will die of malnutrition and starvation, 10,000 kids a day. So the problem is huge. COVID has made it worse. As you can imagine, COVID hurt us, yes, but the people that are just living day to day, hand to mouth, it's killing them. It's killing them. And
yeah, we hear so much of the hardships in countries in Africa with a lot of families that are struggling. You know, there's a lot of poverty, a lot of starvation, a lot of death in various countries. But you know what? It's also impacted us here in North America. We see a lot of cities where a lot of families, and there's a lot of starvation here in North America as well, Canada and the United States.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So to answer your question about what can they do, go to our website, kids-win.com. You can get connected to somebody that's doing Christ-centered microfinance. You can learn more about it. You can read stories and see videos on our website, and you could buy the book and tell your friends. We're just trying to get the message out that this is a model that's working right now. It's amazing in terms of its impact for Giving Dollar, and we'd love for you to be a part of it.
One thing I want to ask you, Lance, before I let you go, what made you become an accountant?
I wanted to be rich. I actually, my dad was in business. I worked for a big firm. I worked for Arthur Andersen at first, and then PwC. I was a tax partner there, and I just could. I wanted the life, and I wanted to be wealthy.
And now?
And now God has put it on my heart to be in ministry full time and to give more and to be part of His unfolding plan.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for your time today, Lance. We really appreciate you joining us from Irvine, California.
Thanks, Hal. God bless you.
You too. Lance Wood is the co-author of the book, $4.83, The Cost to Impact the Life of a Child for a Year, Maybe Forever. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks so much for watching.